for?
When they know it's not gonna happen again.
When what's gonna happen again?
Watch me run, I'm fast like lightning, run, go, run, I'm going on.
What's gonna happen to us?
I'm never stopping, never stopping, never stopping.
E.T.
Elliot.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney BUCKSBAUM from Entertainment Weekly, and while we can't all gather together in person for New York Comic Con this year, thankfully we can still hang out virtually to talk all things pop culture. And today I'm joined by the cast and creative team behind Spontaneous, a new satirical comedy movie that honestly could not be more perfect for this crazy time. So without further ado, say hello to stars Katherine Langford, Charlie Plummer, Hayley Law, Rob Huebel, and director and writer Brian Duffield, and author Aaron STARMER. I'm so glad that we could all get together to talk about Spontaneous because this new movie feels like it was really made specifically for right now, given everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic, our current state of politics, climate change, everything. The way that this movie shows how today's teens continuously have to grapple with these life or death stakes in an increasingly uncertain future feels really spot on. But Brian, tell me, how long ago did you actually film this movie?
It was like 10 years ago. No, I think it was in 2018. When did you wrote it in 2016?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it in 2014, probably. It came out in 2016. So, if you read the book, there's a woman president in it. It was wishful thinking at that time. Yeah, it was a story about a senior year more than anything. And, today I'm reading the news about people in hazmat suits going into a college. So here we are, we're in the middle of it.
So Aaron, where did you get the inspiration to write the story way back then before all this started happening in the real world?
I just had this idea, I should write a YA novel, sort of a typical YA romance, but then throw something strange in it. And I thought of spontaneous combustion. I always thought that was funny or just a good metaphor for things. And so I went with it. And then later, I realized that there was a line, I don't know if it was in the book, but in the movie of The Fault in Our Stars, where Shailene Woodley says something about being a grenade that could blow up at any time. And I realized that I probably was watching that movie and thinking, wow, that would be an interesting turn of events in this movie. So I blame John Green then for that. How
does the adaptation compare to what you were imagining when you were writing the book?
The book goes down all these sort of satirical paths and sort of focuses more on the why and sort of the reaction of the world to this. While Brian, I think, really focused in on the human element of it and the relationships. And I think it works much better as a movie. How
hands-on were you in bringing the adaptation to life into a film?
I mean, I wanted it to be something that I enjoyed as its own thing, rather than I hate movies that are so faithful to the book that they just seem it doesn't seem like anyone's having any fun when you're trying to follow every beat of the book. So yeah, that was my first thing that I said to Brian is do your own thing with it as long as you capture the similar tone, which I think he did.
And so for the actors, what was your first reaction when you read the script for Spontaneous? Katherine, let's start with you.
It was kind of that thing where I read it and I went into it kind of not knowing what to expect. And then there was this kind of story that felt, I think like Aaron said before, this existential romance, which is two of the weirdest things to kind of combust together. No pun intended, but it really did feel this feels cool, but it also felt truthful. It didn't feel like it was necessarily pandering in terms of, when you read things written about young people, sometimes it feels like it's written for them as opposed to coming from them. And Brian just had such an amazing way of, turning this script and turning this journey into something that felt really cool and exciting. And then also the fact that, I think Brian at the time, you might have been coming off of Babysitter. And to me, it was really incredible, kind of having that package deal of someone who's written such and created such an incredible world, who's also doing his directorial debut, and really, having that at the helm, because it does feel like a very special genre and a very unique. And it's one of those things that looking back, I just love. And I've watched it multiple times because I just enjoy it. So that was kind of my reaction.
I kind of couldn't believe that it was getting made, and I just really wanted to be a part of it. I think I remember thinking, like, if this actually gets made, I really hope I get to be a part of it. I think that was the thought. But I also just was so blown away by, I think, Mara as a narrator and as a central character, and I really loved her and her voice, and she especially made me laugh so much. And then I think Brian is just such a talented writer, obviously. And so I was really just taken. I mean, it just kind of mopped the floor with most other scripts that I had been reading at the time. So
I read it twice because I was just like, I remember reading first that someone had exploded, and I was like, what? And then you get into it, and then there's like a sweet love story, and then someone explodes, and I forgot that we're in that world of kids exploding because you just get so sucked into the sweet love story, and then you get, you know, taken back to the trauma. And it was just, I thought it was wild and interesting. And again, yeah, I was like, I can't believe if this is going to happen, I want to see how they're going to do it, and I want to be there. Because, I mean, yeah, and even watching it, it's always interesting to read something and then watch it, and be in it and then watch it. And I had the same feeling watching it. I was traumatized when people were exploding, and then would get sucked into the love story, and I was just like, oh God, they're so cute. And then something terrible would happen, and I was like, oh yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree with these guys. I just couldn't believe that they were going to make this movie, and like that, it literally blew my mind. I was like, I'll go to Vancouver, but they're not going to make this movie. And yeah, it was just a blast to shoot with all these guys. These guys are like super funny in the movie. Like the movie is like, I think, so funny and so dark, but also so sweet. It's such a weird but magical combination. I really can't believe that Brian pulled this off.
I love the parent scenes. They're my favorite. They're so good.
I don't think people felt very festive this year, you know?
Aww.
Yeah.
Plummer.
You got a tree!
We got a tree.
Oh my God! This is so cool!
A real one, too, not one of those fake ones. We gotta put some more ornaments on this thing.
I wanna go get changed. I'm gonna go get changed. Wait, right here. I'm home! Room!
Surprisingly sweet for a movie about exploding teenagers.
Yeah, my question that no one's talking about is Brian a time traveler? Like, did you travel into the future?
I did, and I was just like, oh, it's gonna get really bad, so I got to make this movie before they stop making movies. I feel like we accidentally became really on the nose, and a couple years ago we were like very broad and satirical in a way, and now it's not broad at all. And so I'm curious about how people will respond to something, because it feels less comedic and more like, oh yeah, this is how it works. And if I could make it again, I would change a bunch of things, because I know so much more about pandemic response. Because I was making most of it up, and now I'm like, oh yeah, they would make kids wear masks.
I remember we were doing it. I was like, can you imagine if they actually made us quarantine?
Yeah, and there was Katherine had like a little bit in the movie where she was wearing a mask, and we cut it, and then it feels really stupid that got cut. Although it's probably better, because it would have been it would have felt really phony now probably.
So I wanted to ask, the actors, specifically like Charlie and Katherine, what was that like, having to deal with constantly being covered in so much fake blood?
I just remember it being very sticky. The shower after work would be particularly messy and red and gross.
Yeah.
But I remember particularly there's one scene, without giving anything away, where there is a lot of blood, and there might even be like waterfalls of blood, you might say, and that was pretty that was pretty spectacular to get to be a part of.
The thing Charlie's talking about, it took a couple of days. It was actually the first few days that we had on set, and it was a lot of like we were very fit that week. It was a lot of running, a lot of stickiness. One of my friends recently was Googling me for some reason, because that's what they like to do. And she just sent me this photo, and it's this photo that I think they took when I was outside, and I'm literally covered head to toe.
I love that photo.
Photo went everywhere when we were filming, and everyone was like, what the are you guys like doing? But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
What is the actual device? Just because I never got to see how you guys did that. Is it just a cannon that just like, because you'll be on somebody and then you'll pan off of them and go on to someone else, and then the explosion will happen, and it'll just be like the biggest like mountain of like, what is the device?
It's like a handheld cannon, and sometimes we had like one nozzle, and sometimes it was like 3 if we needed it to be extra wide. And then there would sometimes just be a guy like holding this weapon basically and just shooting it into the air. And then sometimes it was mounted. And then sometimes I think with like the blood waterfall, it was just like they just poured a bucket of blood on the floor and then had a mop and they just pushed it off. So it was real low rent, but it looks great.
And something that's so great about this movie is how it shows that even in the face of something so scary and out of your control, teens like Mara and Dylan can still manage to find love.
First day of school, new town after my dad died. First time I saw you was right after Spiros introduced me in front of the class.
You must be Dylan. Welcome. Class, I'd like for you to meet Mr. Dylan Hofmeyer. He's new here, so please don't be yourselves. Be nice.
It was a good first impression. A few weeks later, I saw you at the Moonlight, and when Jed tried wrapping his arm around you.
So Katherine and Charlie, what was it like building your on-screen dynamic to sell that love story?
Lots of seafood towers. We had so much fun. And that's the thing that really comes to mind when I think about this is probably one of the most fun kind of experiences that I've had on a set.
The script was super clear for me in terms of like the character, that this guy, you know, he was just really open, and I think that gave me like a sense of freedom with the relationship, like what Katherine's saying about just really trying to find those moments of them connecting and just having fun and laughing in the midst of all of, you know, the chaos and death that surrounds them.
You know, I think it's about like they're just having a really good time. It's like their senior year, and they're really resistant to this idea that it's kind of their world is falling apart around them. And then I think now it's been kind of, you know, as the world ends around us, you know, I feel like just seeing how most people are responding in like a very comedic way, as opposed to like a very like it's really intense and serious, but you know, there's less of like, you know, there's not like a lot of like crying TikToks. It's a lot of like people like trying their best to kind of keep their spirits up and their friends up. And so that's one of the things I'm most proud of in terms of both the relationship between Hayley and Katherine and Charlie, is that it feels very much like everyone's trying to have as good a time as possible.
And speaking of Hayley's character, while the movie is this explosive love story, I was so into the BFF love that Mara and Tess share, because they feel like the kind of best friends that everyone wants to have throughout their lives. So Katherine and Hayley, can you talk about what that was like bringing that story to life?
It was fun. I feel like it's easy when you're working with nice, fun people. Honestly, it doesn't feel like, you know, intense acting when the person you're acting with is actually like cool and funny. So I think it was really great to do that. And it wasn't like, I have to be best friends with Katherine. Like it was super easy.
What if that happens to you?
It won't.
How do you know that? Promise.
I can't promise you.
No, why? Just promise me. Promise or I'll scream. Promise, please.
It'll be fine. That's not very convincing, but if you go, like, I'm coming. And if I go, I'm taking you too. I'm serious.
I think it's nice to have, when you have these characters like kind of bounce off of each other, you suddenly get this medium, and that was really nice to have, and really nice to work with talented and lovely open people.
Yeah, it really blew my mind how familiar you guys all seem with each other. You guys really do seem like just easy friends, that you and Hayley have known each other forever. There's some cool stuff that flashes back to when you guys were like little kids and what you always wanted to be when you grew up. And I just thought there's like such a easiness between you guys that was so funny and cool. And yeah, and all your stuff with Charlie too, you guys, it's so all your like sweet scenes where you guys are hanging out, and like that dialogue to me didn't feel written at all. Like I was watching, I was like, I think they're just making this up, because you guys are just like joking around and like just making dumb jokes and having little awkward beats with each other that felt so like authentic to me. I just thought it was really cool.
I never actually wrote a script. It was great. They just
what did you do, Brian? Because it sounds like a bunch of other people pointed the blood cannons at people, and these guys did the dialogue.
I got hit with the blood cannon. That was my job. But no, and a lot of the dialogue too is straight from the book. So it was like this great combination of I either stole it from Aaron or the kids made it up. So I don't know what I did.
I also want to give a shout out to all the supporting artists that we had who aren't on this panel right now, but we were just so lucky with the caliber of people who came in. And you watch this, and some of these characters have the most bizarre, wonderful lines and deliveries, and they just did such a fantastic job, which I think also was really cool to be able to have. So shout out to them, and shout out to casting on that.
Speaking of someone who isn't here, I have to shout out Piper, because Piper and Rob, the scenes where you're parenting Catherine's character are some of the most heartbreaking parts of the movie. So Rob, how did you approach playing that role, knowing that you were bringing some more of the grounded gravitas to the film?
Yeah, the reason Piper's not on this is because she's actively like saving democracy right now.
Yeah, Piper is a badass.
School's canceled.
For how long?
But we're just going to keep applying to colleges, so you'll be all set once this blows over.
Well, at least now you can't say things were so much harder back in my day.
You're right. You have it way worse.
This movie is like, it's such a specific tone, and Brian did such a great job of like threading the needle of that sort of funny, cool romance, but also like this weird, like Cronenberg movie where people are exploding and there's so much blood. So, you know, the threat of this movie is that at any second she could explode. Like at any second we could lose her. So once you sort of embrace that as real, you know, it sort of sets you on your path. But yeah, so I think I just sort of watched Katherine and Piper. I'm like, okay, no one's making dumb jokes. We're playing this totally straight. And that's what ends up being funny, because like, because it is so, it's so real, it's absurd, and it's so dark.
It is satirical, and there's this kind of really existential element to the film. But in order to balance that out and not just have, you know, this pure kind of satire running through the entirety of the movie, I think it really needed those powerful, strong moments of humanity. And when I think back on filming, there's like scenes that I would read that instantly, when you read them, they just kind of hit you right here. And both you and Piper have two of those scenes. And without kind of ruining it, it's just, there was this moment in the scene, I'm going to say, like kind of when things were down and dark and things, and you have this really caring paternal moment. And I just remember it being like, I was like, oh, how do I do this without ruining it? But I was there, and it's the way you delivered it, it was just so heartfelt. And I remember like when we were filming how amazing that was, because like both you and Piper are absolutely hilarious in between takes, and then you would go into these really beautiful, just like honest human moments that I feel like people, when they watch this, like those to me are going to be the real moments that people are like, wow, like, yeah, that hits close to home. Like, yes, I've had that conversation, or yes, I've said that to my parents or my daughter or whoever. So that was really beautiful, like, to see and to work with.
So how did filming this movie give you guys hope for the future despite everything that's going on in the world?
I remember thinking, I hope we never go through anything like this.
I think it has quite an affirmation for life, because there is talk of the future and there is always talk of moving forward. And even in those moments where it does get kind of like very in the moment and very stuck on that moment, in ways of reflecting on it now, obviously in these times, it kind of just reminds me of the kind of learning curve that I think a lot of people have gone through, not to be like on the nose or pull too much from reality, but you know, when you're faced with adversity or when you're faced with these really difficult times, you go through all these big emotions and despair and not knowing. And then you get to a point where you realize, like, every day is still a day. Like, you don't know what's ever going to come. So just kind of take it as it is and move forward. And I think there's something about where the film lands, which is really, it just lands on that. It lands on that note of acknowledgement, but then also of that kind of affirming moving forward. And that feels really, it feels really nice, and it feels really real without being like overly hopeful or like peppy or, you know, kind of overdoing it in that way. So I think it was a really nice way to kind of map out, both story-wise on Aaron's part, but then also Brian for kind of executing that whole thing.
Katherine has like a really, like one of her big scenes at the end is with this amazing actress, Shayla Horsdal, who I thought also like, and it's like, it could be like a really intense, and it's probably like the most emotionally intense scene in the movie, but like they were able to really make this a moment that is as dark and as intense as it is, you know, kind of feeling it as being like a hopeful moment. I was really blown away by both of them. And the scene was great. Like, we were supposed to shoot it outdoors, and we tried to shoot it outdoors, but we were hit with a blizzard. And so then these two powerhouse actresses had to like give this scene on a warehouse floor.
That was inside?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is my favorite. That's the best scene. It's so great.
So we tried shooting, and then we got shut down because there was just so much snow, and I was afraid I was going to kill Katherine Langford. Because it was like -10 degrees, and Katherine was trying to act in a t-shirt, and it was brutal. But then they gave like these two amazing performances, where again it's like they're talking about really heavy, you know, big picture stuff, and it's still fun and but without it tipping into like a comedic thing. Like, I think they really kind of walk this really bizarre tightrope of how dark the scene is, but then how it's not dragging the movie into like a place of despair, but instead it's like a place of you know, growing up and kind of acknowledging what's happened and being maybe not excited, but you know, eager for tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, Brian mentioned that the day that I showed up on set, I showed up for the last few days, I was so out of my element, and I was like, I think this is the real deal. I don't know what's going on here. And I was just so blown away by her performance. You know, I was there for 3 days, and they were just running back and forth and from spot to spot. And it was a fantastic job by everyone.
You cannot tell watching the movie how run and gun it was. Like, you really, it looks and feels like, in fact, I hate even saying that it was made in 21 days, because then studios go, oh, well, we should make every movie in 21 days. But it looks so good, and the lighting and the camera
were really
there's
great.
So much production value, and like there's stuff in like lighting in the woods where I'm like, how did they light these trees for these kids to walk through and make out? There, you know, there's just like, I don't know. I just thought that whoever your DP and camera guys were, they just all those people.
Greg Morton, yeah, who's shooting Lord of the Rings right now.
Oh my God. Okay, so you just got like the best crew ever.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
I think all of that is such a testament to the actors that you brought on, Brian, and I mean Katherine and Hayley. I think you guys just were so phenomenal, and also in being able to work on the fly like that and deliver in the way you guys did. But also, I do really think, you know, you setting that tone from the very beginning, Brian, of it being such a familial set. And
just for me, selfishly, I'm like, when like you guys would drop lines that were better than what I wrote, I'm like, oh, that's fantastic, because I'll just tell people I wrote it. Like, no one will ever know the difference.
I think it's a dream when you work on something like this where it is specific and it is different and unique. Like this is a script that so many people gravitated towards and were so excited about, not just from actors or, you know, crew, but also like agents, people who were reading this basically were just so excited. And I think it's a dream when you make something like this to have someone like Brian Duffield at the helm, who is there and who believes in his vision and who also believes in everyone else, even more than you believe in yourself. And I think truly, like, that's such a testament to him. And also, I think that's part of the magic that tied the film together is the passion that drives this. And at the core of it, I think that's like what good films are made of, you know? It's people believing in something and not just, you know, spending cold nights and long days and quick days trying to do it, but then, you know, really wanting to put this vision together. And because it's a lot of behind the scenes, but I think it really elevated this. And it's very cool. And I can't wait personally for Brian's next script.
Thanks. And it's so like hopeful and fun and sends you off like, yeah, like I just thought it was really, the ending of it is such a strong thing. I thought it was great.
Well, speaking of a strong ending, before we end this panel, do you guys have a message for fans watching from home, since we can't all be together in New York at New York Comic-Con this year?
Yes, that they should vote for Joe Biden on November 3rd.
I really appreciate every single person who watches the trailer and shares it. And Catherine's got like an army of fans that it's just like, I get messages every day that it's like, Katherine Langford fan 101, Katherine Langford for life. And I'm like, I love it. I love reading the comments. Most of them are great. And they're just like, Charlie Plummer, oh, I'm so excited. Charlie Plummer's taking over the world. And I'm like, you bet he is. And I just love seeing the support. And it's just like a great little family. And I'm just so thankful for everyone.
Everyone was just so wonderful to work with and show up. And so I hope people like the movie as much as we liked hanging out together.
It's great to see you guys. Congrats on the movie, you guys.
What? What is happening? No! No!